I believe these cities have never been submerged.
People began to think Simon had gone a little strange. Emma, his wife, was both afraid of flying and a bit scared of the Middle East situation. Nor was she as convinced about this as Simon was. So, on the 25th of October 2005, Simon made his first trip alone. Arriving mid-afternoon and jet-lagged, a trip to the Dead Sea wasn't feasible that day. So, being a new Christian in the Holy Land, he took in some sights. The next day, he hired a taxi and headed for Mount Masada and the site of the city of Gomorrah. Approaching the tip of the Dead Sea, they passed high white-walled cities 35 kilometers before Masada. Simon thought they were Admah and Zeboim. Perhaps for the first time, he began to appreciate just how far the cities of the plain were spread apart. Not all together as people have thought, something that was to prove very significant later. Eventually, Simon entered the city of Gomorrah. Deadly quiet, with no wind, and no birds singing. A ghost town. Fear and excitement both gave way as the reality of where he stood rendered Simon totally speechless. Not a picture in a book, not a video anymore. He was there. But who would believe him? He needed proof. An urgent frenzy came over him. He recalled the documentaries he had watched and began searching for brimstone, urged on by a comment that his wife Emma had made.
You'll never doubt God again if you find some brimstone, brimstone, brimstone.
Simon dug with his bare hands for 20 minutes, but he found nothing. Exhausted, with no water or hat in the ferocious heat, he turned to leave, fruitless and disappointed, but stopped and prayed. There it was. Brimstone, a small, chalky ball about an inch in diameter and slightly heavier than polystyrene, just the same as he had seen on his home TV screen. He took a piece of the ashen walls, packed them both carefully, and returned to the taxi. In the privacy of his hotel room, Simon wanted to prove to himself he had the genuine article. A simple test left him in no doubt, and he returned home full of excitement. Despite carrying a plastic bag with white powder in it, the wall sample was already crumbling, and a box with some strange rock balls, Simon miraculously cleared customs. At home, a reception committee was waiting for him. His wife and daughter, still a little skeptical, waited for him to reveal his finds. And like a magician, Simon produced his sulfur jewel. He ushered his audience around him and showed them the same test he had conducted in the hotel.
I was really excited that Dad was coming home from Israel because he'd phoned us up and told us about all the discoveries that he had made. And as soon as he got home, he took us into the kitchen and he took out these balls of sulphur, and just 2 or 3 seconds after he lit it, me and Mum had to run out because the fumes were so choking, and seeing those balls of sulphur helped me really believe in Sodom and Gomorrah.
It was becoming obvious that scientific analysis was needed. Discoveries made by unqualified people, no matter how reasonable or exciting they appear, aren't enough. But more samples were needed, so a second trip was planned. This time, there was a totally different level of enthusiasm.
What I brought back caused enormous interest, so I organised a group trip to the site. There were 8 of us the second time: Emma, my wife, and Alex, Einar the cameraman, Paul Huggins ex-boxer, Laurentia, Michael, and their son Brouchard.
When Simon said he wanted to go and find Sodom and Gomorrah, I think he'd gone a bit balmy, maybe reading the Bible a bit too much. I didn't go for several reasons. The first one, as I say, I wasn't too sure that it was there, and my faith really wasn't strong enough at this point. And the second thing was, obviously there's issues over in Israel at the moment, and it frightened me. I really don't like flying, so obviously I was very anxious when he left for his safety, being left at home on my own with my daughter. But from the minute he actually left and he rang to say he was at the airport, I was very jealous. I wished that I had gone. I felt very sad that he wasn't there, and still very anxious because of the safety factors. Simon kept ringing me up and he was telling me about all the wonderful places he was at, and he just had such a difference in his voice. He was just so happy and just so confident, and he just kept ringing up and he was telling me he was here, he was there, and it was lovely to hear him just sounding so great. Lauren and I headed off to the airport to pick Simon up, and obviously we was very excited when we saw him. But the talk was just about what Simon had done, and my daughter was just really wanted to get home and see the ball of brimstone that he'd promised to bring home. When we got home, normally all we're worried about is the presents that Simon's bought us, but not this time. We instantly wanted to see the ball of sulphur, and so Simon was just like a kid with a toy, like with candy. He was so excited to get it out, and we was just all rushed into the kitchen, and it was absolutely amazing what we saw. Me and Lauren were for the first time lost for words. It was a real magical moment. It changed my mind really. From Simon came back just a totally different man. His faith was really renewed. He had such a love for God, and he was just really different. And he was showing me the pictures, everything we saw, and I just wanted to be like Simon. I wanted to have that faith and that confidence that Simon had. And I decided that if I really believed in this and I really trusted, that all my fears would be put to one side and I would go.
On the 29th of February 2006, 8 people with very mixed feelings of excitement, bewilderment, and still with fears of flying and other potential dangers, boarded a flight to Israel. Questions arose. Was there more to see? Where was Sodom? Could it be seen? Wasting no time on the first day, the party headed straight for the site of Gomorrah. The midday sun brought the ghostly buildings into sharp relief as the group entered the city, making it even more dramatic than Simon recalled. The new visitors were stunned. Simon's heart was gladdened as he saw others sharing his passion at last. Just like Simon's first visit, words failed the team as they tried to grasp the reality of the moment, surrounded by thousands of tons of historical truth. Still in awe, everyone turned their attention to finding brimstone samples. But strangely, just as Simon had experienced, 20 minutes of searching proved futile. Newly inspired by what she had experienced, Emma prayed with the group. 2 minutes later, she shouted,
Simon! Simon! Is this one? Come quick!
A 2-inch diameter white powdery ball, which she had found under a bush, lay in her hand. Everyone gathered as the first trophy of their visit was identified. Brimstone, bigger than any that Simon had found. Filled with excitement, everyone began looking under bushes. Suddenly, it was everywhere, like strawberry picking, bigger and bigger samples. Einar asked Simon how they could be sure it was the real thing. He selected the smallest piece, placed it on a kitchen knife, and lit it. Now everyone had seen the proof for themselves. The ball burned so fiercely that it welded a shell to the knife. With renewed vigor, the hunt was resumed. While the others searched, Simon picked up another piece of rock. When he tried to light it, it didn't burn. He satisfied himself that not all the rocks in the area contained sulfur. 66 samples were collected in all that day, amongst which was one very different from the rest. Paul found a piece embedded in a wall. It resembled a peanut in a shell, with a hole at one end through which the sulfur ball could be seen clearly. Fired into the wall at a phenomenal velocity, the sphere burning at a ferocious heat had melted the wall around it, creating a brown husk before it was extinguished, starved of oxygen. A theory exists whereby some people believe the sulfur in this region is the result of volcanic activity. Other theories involving volcanoes and explosions emerged as scientists were contacted, but we will address this later. Thrilled and exhausted, the ecstatic team hardly noticed the 1-hour journey back to their hotel. In Einar's room, the sulfur gems were arranged on a table. Everyone wanted to see another one burn, but care had to be taken because of the smoke alarms. Opening all the doors and windows and choosing the smallest sample,